Crossroads. It's out
It
now.
is.
Again. It's out again.
It is out again.
Out again. Which is a neat. I don't think we've had any reprints technically yet on the podcast.
Ah, okay.
But I am after Todd Kiesling. I believe he literally. I ask everybody what's a book everyone should read or something. No, I asked Todd, what's a book that tears your heart out, and he said Crossroads.
Ah,
and I
that's
went,
very kind of him.
And I went looking for Crossroads.
No.
And then I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on?
Where did
Am I
it go?
crazy? And then I figured it out. I managed it all. But Crossroads is now out through Shortwave.
Mm-hmm.
Out again.
Yes.
And that's my first question for you is what is it like revisiting? You talk a little bit about in the afterword about revisiting the story, coming back to it years later. What did you like reread through everything? Do you reread this book ever? Do you have that? Do you reread any of your old stories?
I generally do not. Sometimes I will on a short story, particularly like, if it's been a while since I've since I got it accepted and then I get my contributor's copy. Sometimes it's fun to read it in that format, with everyone else's stories. And when you're reading everyone else's stories, sometimes it's kind of fun. But with my longer works, absolutely not, because I am 100% certain that the first thing that'll happen is I'll find a typo, and then I will, run screaming into the night because I spent however long on edits, and I would just generally rather not know. So the last time I revisited this story was when Thunderstorm did their special edition, and even then it was very like glancing. I did not read the story. Paul just like where he had done the conversion, he wanted me to check for PDF, like formatting errors. So I was kind of like, and I was even, it's almost like a superstition kind of, it's like if I don't see the typo, it doesn't exist, so I'm just like kind of like, I was approaching it very carefully. So with this one, I wasn't planning on doing any edits, because Alan and I were just like, yeah, sure. And then he asked me to check through the PDF for the same reason. And like, I started noticing passive language, and I was like, no, and so God love Alan. He's so kind, because I was like, and he was like, yeah, okay, we don't normally do it at this stage, but yeah, okay, if you want to do a quick turnaround. And so and it's really like, I don't know that readers who, are particularly familiar with it will even necessarily notice much in the way it changes, because nothing developmental changed, nothing plot wise changed. It was more just like, I think it was like 116 like small little fixes. So yeah, but it was, going back through it once I got over cringing at myself for, not being perfect, as one does. It was nice to revisit, and it was, it's interesting when you read something you've got some distance from, because in some ways it feels like it was written by someone else.
I was about to say, I get asked questions about old, books I wrote 6 years ago or 7 years ago or whatever. And I'm like, because, you're always writing things years ahead of when they are published, theoretically. And it's like, I was at a book club and someone goes, why did you do this? And I go, I don't know. I don't remember. I could tell you what I think is why I did it, but I can't tell you honest. I don't remember why I made this decision in this. Probably because it made the most sense at the time. Probably it was the most efficient thing I could think of. I don't know. So it's more like I'm always curious about people, especially when you're reprinting something like this, and where I have been seeing all the stuff come out this week as it's been re-released. And everyone's like, the most important novella of the decade. And I'm like, wow, it's incredible.
That is some imposter syndrome creating kind of statements, believe me. But it's also, it's so kind. And there's this just beautiful connection that I feel with the readers of Crossroads, that the ones that, and I even like, as part of like, the trying to get the word out about it, I put out a video saying like, hey, if it's meant something to you and you're comfortable stating what that is, to be awesome, like kind of grassroots effort. And some people definitely threw in. But the reason I was so careful about how I phrase that is because I've gotten a number of messages or people talking to me throughout the years about it meaning something very personal to them. And I'm like, I am not now going to turn around and use that for marketing, and
Yeah.
so said that it really helped with this horrible, incredibly personal situation, which I'm now going to put out for, like I did not at all want to do that because I treasure those interactions. But yeah,
Like, I
it's
mean,
just nice to have that out.
I would say of the things, because this is my first time with Crossroads. I did not read it the first time through. Uh, Probably the hardest thing I've had to read for the show
Oh,
so far.
I'm sorry.
Not because I mean it's brilliant. It's great. I mean, if anyone out there, I'm sure some of the people listening have not experienced Crossroads yet. And for those people, I heartily suggest you read it. But it is a very tough. It is challenging, and I mean like challenging. Like I don't know. Like I think I've talked about this before about people the growth and boom of extreme horror of splatterpunk, because it's like people want that, like I want to get right to the edge of what I can experience. I'm like, they should read this. That is what they should be reading. Because this is what, like, this is the hard thing, right? This is the thing, like, it's gonna rip out. It is, when Todd says it's gonna rip out your heart, 100%. Amen. It's gonna rip out your heart. Do you have memory of writing it? Do you have
Absolutely.
okay, you have this. You have those distinct memories of it.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's all very clear. And it I don't know, it still means very much the same thing to me. Because and it was so I didn't want, it's not a spoiler to say that this deals with the loss of a child.
Oh wait! I'm an idiot because I should start off the podcast this way, but I'll do it right now. Could you give our listeners an elevator pitch for your
Well,
story?
I kind of almost want to say no because I'm super bad at those. Like it's like an elevator that has like 30 floors and stops a lot is what I'm more because I don't, and I'm not very linear, but
Would you like me to give? I can do my best. My best.
yes, yeah, that would be
Ride in the
amazing. Yeah,
elevator.
you
Okay.
do yours.
Crossroads is grief horror about a mother who's recently lost her a young adult son in a horrible accident, and discovers that by accident, by bleeding on his burial marker, not
Yeah,
burial marker, I guess memorial marker on the side of the highway, that she can perhaps bring him back.
yeah,
And the descent,
yeah.
and then inexorable descent into what could it take?
Yes,
What can I sacrifice to get my son back?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good pitch. Yeah, because I would have been like, and then this, but wait, oh wait, hang on, let me back get, because it's all in your head, and
Right. I mean, I did also just read it, so it's
see,
like
that's perfect.
it's pretty easy for me to.
You're, you're better prepared for that.
Yeah, but it there. So you were answering. Your memory deals with grief, deals with a mother. You were answering a question about memories of writing the story.
Yeah, yeah, and it's you know I but I actually kind of remain a little bit superstitious about writing about some things. Like I don't even recognize that I have that superstition, but it's like, it's kind of like I don't want to say the name. I don't want to look directly on, cuz like as soon as I had a child, it was like, wow, this is literally the worst thing I can possibly think of. I don't want to think about it ever. And also, I don't want to put it on the page and then have the gremlins of whatever take notice. Um, lot, we're dealing with all these Greek tragedies and stuff where our hubris and curiosity is always getting us, into terrible. So I think there's just that still that like that part of me, but I did, and I didn't want to write about something like that. But in addition to my biological son, I have he's 31 now. I have a stepson from my previous marriage, who is an absolute delight. He's one of my favorite humans. He's wonderfully magnificent. When he was a teenager, he did the things that all teenagers do that terrify their parents. And so, I kind of did look at some of that stuff head on of like, these fears that you end up having to face, at a certain point. And that was really what, it was kind of an amalgamation of my concern and worry for him, my terror over, and it's not as though I'm afraid that when I'm saying that, it's making it sound as though like I had this stepson and he was fine, but I didn't really care about anyone's life until I had that's not, it's not at all what I'm trying to convey, but I didn't raise him from the little bitties. I didn't raise him from an infant where you're worried about SIDS and toddlers who manage to find the most death-defying things in like a padded room. So I didn't raise him from that era. It's I don't know. I'm rambling now, but it is just I do very much remember that whole like the way all that sort of coalesced. My fears for both of them, because your fears are different. My fears for my toddler at the time versus my fears for my 20-something-year-old are very very different. So yeah, all of that, it just still felt, very fresh in that. And, you're a writer, that some stories like are what you needed to say at the time and they're still right for that time, but you're no
Yes,
longer that
absolutely.
person who needed to put that on the page because you exercised it. None of that's been exercised apparently.
There is that kernel of like, I don't know. Sometimes I look back at books, I'm like, I don't know what the hell was going on with me then, but I was having trouble. That was bad. I don't know
Yeah.
what I did. But then there's other things where you're like, I feel like I'm just going to be writing the same story for the rest of my life. Like you're just writing, like, I don't know. There's a lot of themes that I keep coming back to over
Same.
and over and over and over again. And I don't know if I'll ever escape them. And that's okay. I think that's basically how people get, I don't know, artists get signatures to a certain extent, is write about the same
Absolutely.
themes over and over again.
Keith Ross. I love so like I was a co-host on a podcast for a while and got just did some amazing interviews with just all kinds of authors where there were all these little nuggets that were passed on that like you're still just like with me. And one of them, Keith Ross, and actually we were talking about that, and he was saying he looked at it a lot like how painters will paint the same scene over and over and over, slightly different angle, slightly different style, night, day, like all the and it's because they're still hammering on getting that right and they're still processing that. And that really, I don't know, clicked for me because I did worry. I was like, am I going to the same well too often? Am I revisiting this stuff? Am I just going to become this chick who, does this exact thing? And that was very freeing for me, to look at it more in that fashion.
I mean, there's another anecdote I really love about. I might have even said on this podcast before, but the lead singer of the Decemberists, Colin Malloy, who is also an author, actually, um, he was at a Q&A and someone asked him, "Why do you write so many songs about drowning?"
Hmm.
And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I guess I do that, don't I?" And he's like, "Oh no." And it's like I guess until that point he had not really put together that he does have lots of songs
Yeah.
about drowning over and over and over again. You're like, why do you keep doing that, huh?
It's funny. It's funny how that stuff will happen and you don't. And I don't know if you've had this happen. Like it's more likely to happen to me with short stories, but somebody will throw out like a quote or something and I'm like, "Wow, a great line." And they're like, "It's from yours." I'm like, "I suck on a lot of levels right now."
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's a certain amount of time when you just write enough, you're not gonna remember it all. It's just
No.
like you have a finite amount of space up here, and a lot of times I'm looking forward. I'm not, like you
Yes,
said,
you
not
are.
reading. You're not rereading old stuff. You're like, I'm looking forward to the next project. I'm thinking the thing I'm trying to get an agent with or something. Like
Yeah.
I'm not worried about a book that I published 3 years ago. It's fine. It's out there. I
Yeah.
let go of it
It's
finally.
self-sufficient now. It's doing its own
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. It left the house.
Yeah.
We're gonna just keep using the childhood metaphors.
Nice.
Um, so my question, like, for the question about the actual story, about the actual text, or at least around it, is so about. I'm gonna avoid spoilers
Okay.
for most like there's it's not like there's a lot to spoil in the story because the story is it's more about watching poor Chris uh,
Yeah.
unravel, but about about let's say explanations about let's say supernatural or perhaps not supernatural things happening in the story.
Hmm.
It is a lot of things are left to the reader's interpretation.
Hmm.
Certain things are, I feel like, in stone. Other things are not on the page. And what guides you, and in this story, and maybe in everything you've written, what guides you to how much you give a reader? How many things you say, I want this to be on the page, this explicit thing that does point at this, versus This other thing, I don't want to point at anything. That's up to the reader to decide.
That's a great question, and I feel like that might be one of those ones that in the process I'm not super conscious of. In large part, it's, like you get your first draft down, and that is very much, now I am a plotter, but that's mostly to keep myself corralled so I don't wander off down, all these different paths that I otherwise would. But I keep it pretty loose because I don't, like, a story is organic, it evolves, it goes from here to there, and I want it to be able to do that. So if this makes sense now, then and that's not what I put on the outline. I want to be able to follow that. So I don't spend, so I think that's more almost something that, like, I go by vibes, go by feel, what works for this scene, what propels it, what is compelling to the, to the characters and to the readers. And then a lot of it in the editorial phase is a lot of like, hey, how is this playing? Does it make sense? Are there plot holes? And I don't ever want to withhold something for the sake of withholding it, like no, it's going to be a twist, or it's like, nah, it's not
Right.
necessary for all things. And I don't want to spoon feed anyone either. I don't know, it's probably a very unsatisfactory answer, but I have to say a lot of that has to do with vibes, and then just a, kind of a logical read through, and, paying attention to things like, editorial comments on, which I don't think I ran into any of this with Crossroads, because it was just it's very brief, and that kind of stuff came very naturally in this story. They're not always the case. But, paying attention to editorial comments, either from a beta reader or from an editor, where if they're asked a question like, well, what's this? And you're thinking, well, I answer that in 10 pages. If they're asking the question, then that means I'm answering the question too late, so kind of, it's invaluable to get that kind of feedback. And then you make a decision. With Below, I think which was the one I published after this one, I was much more conscious about, I am flat out not saying anything, because, and not to be like ooh, I'm mysterious, but I was like, hey, what would a character actually have access to in this information?
Right.
What would they have access to in this situation? How could they possibly obtain this information? And is it going to be silly? Do I have an exposition in the background kind of thing?
Right.
So it's just kind of what works for the story. Some of the stuff that I do is a little bit ambiguous, and some of it is absolutely not. So it's just what works for the story.
It was a thing that was in my mind as I'm, it's the writer in me. It was like picking at what is verifiable by multiple sources versus what is just Chris seeing and things like that. And you're always picking like, oh, what's real, what's not real. There's a little bit, I would say even Crossroads even has a little bit of that kind of magical realism, fabulism elements in it.
Yeah, she gets that magical thinking,
right,
kind of thing. And for I'm glad this is fun, because it's like, that's not a question I'd ever considered, but as I'm thinking about it now, I'm thinking more on the process too. And I think maybe the answer with this one has to do with, again, with Chris, it's less about what is true and verifiable and what's the final answer versus the choices that she makes based on faith and based on the exact, it's mirroring in some ways her process of getting pregnant,
right,
of this, like, oh, you have to have faith, and oh, you're at a crossroads, and do you take this step or do you not? And looking at the pain that exists here that's knowable, and the pain that may be waiting for you down this path. And it kind of has more to do with her faith as a mother and what she's willing to live with and what she can't,
right. And I mean, I think that is ultimately it's not the most important question of is if this is real or not. I think that it matters to some extent, but it matters about what you said, her faith and her belief.
Yeah.
Which leads me to the next question, which is connected, I guess, which is, was there any concern in your mind about making Chris's behavior believable and her reactions proportionate? Because at a certain point, I think obviously I'm not a parent, but I understand the attack. Like, I understand the love and like devotion, but there is like I'm certain there's a person out there who'd be like, oh, this is absolutely crazy behavior. This is utterly insane behavior. And I can't read a story. I immediately don't believe that.
Yeah.
does that enter into your mind? Do you care? Do you need to make that does that logic need to exist in the story even?
I don't think so. It's not that I don't consider reader's reaction. I will say that the greater concern that I actually had was about, so I am a parent, but I am not a parent, and I am going to go ahead and knock on wood. I'm not a parent who's faced that situation. And it was more important to me to not inadvertently send a message that life after a loss like that is inherently invaluable, not valued.
Right.
And I didn't want to, I didn't want to send certain messages along that line. But to me, I think that a lot of people, and a lot of people have been able to identify, and not just people who are parents, people who are processing the loss of their own parents, or some other kind of loss, some other kind of grief, and somehow working through this was helpful for them. To me, it's much more, and I actually have like, I do, I know we're not supposed to, but I do occasionally go read reviews, especially I did back more of this because it was very towards the beginning of my career. And I would see people say like, this is ludicrous. My son would never do this. And I'm just kind of like, you're so close. You're like, super, you're almost there.
Yeah.
But I'm also kind of like, but if you didn't get there, that could be my fault, you know? Because I do like, yes, I sometimes look at reviews, but I will be damned if I ever comment on them. It's a reader
Yeah.
space, however someone interacts with the story is how they interact with it. But that is a good question. And no, I think it was just like, I think that that a lot of people, even if they would look at the behavior and say, I would never do that, I think most people would be able to say, I see why she did. I wish she didn't, or I find this unhealthy, or I judge her for it. But for the most part, you can say like, I can see wandering down that path.
I mean, I don't know. I'm obviously have a very long suspension of disbelief rope. I could push that really far. I'd be like, well, I don't know. Honestly, I feel like I don't know. It's probably a bad thing, but I feel like with obviously the internet and our access to other people,
Yeah.
there is literally no behavior that I couldn't buy anymore.
Yeah, true.
Anyone could do anything at any time, and I'd be like, I believe it.
Yeah.
There's people out there that would do. I every day I see something more insane. This question is, I don't know, a little bit more mundane, but one that I've been thinking about lately. Maybe it's because people have been asking me about it in my writing group. But when you're writing this, did you know the length of this story before you wrote it? Did you know that it would be a novella versus a novel versus a novelette or whatever?
I did. And it's kind of funny on that because the previous books that I had written were all novels, and they were really hefty ones. Whispers in the Dark was, I think, I think it ended up being like almost 110,000 words. Silent Key was actually what I wrote directly after that, but it took a long time to get published, in part because it was 200,000 words when I started. Ridiculous, like
So long.
ludicrous.
That's
I
such a
know.
long
It's before that
story.
became. I was
I
just
can't
being
imagine.
I was being so self-indulgent, but I had a blast writing it. I just didn't want to leave the characters. So, it's one of these things. And then when I got the idea for Crossroads, like I've actually I have my little initial note document that I have. It's actually something I have sent to beginning writers when they've asked me about plotting and how I do that. I'm like, I will send you this and you can see what it is that I do. There's a note at the top that says likely works best as a novella. And I don't know why I was so clear on that, except that I feel like with this, I had such a clear vision of the beginning to the end. And I knew that it was going to be a rapid descent. I knew that it was going to have to hold that line very closely and not get in the weeds on anything else. And again, that's part of why I plot, especially with novellas, is because I'm like, I really like to have a scene plan of like, I'm sorry, if the camera shake, I have a pit bull on the other end of the couch. And
You're
so,
fine.
yeah, she's just, there's not an earthquake.
There's a dog barking on my side, so you're
Yeah, so
good. Those
we're just,
dogs are.
yeah. They just want to be involved. It's okay.
She's defending us from all the killers out in the
Thank
world.
God. I hope you
Yeah,
give
I
her some
know.
treats later for it.
She is the very spoiled dog. Don't worry about that.
Good, as
Yeah.
as they should be.
Yes.
But yeah, this one was easy to pin down as a novella. And I felt very strongly about keeping it at that length. I had advice at the time, because again, I was very new at this point. I had advice from my then agent and then from another much more experienced writer that was like, no, 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 you just need to expand it. You have to expand it. Novellas don't sell. And my agent wouldn't shop it because it was a novella. And I was like, well, kind of shop it myself. And he was like, yeah, I don't care. And not in like a, yeah, suck it, kind of way. He was just like, yeah, if you want to do it, go for it. And I'm so glad that I did, because it also meant that it was a medium then that I got real comfortable with. I love to knock out a novella. It's right. You talk about, like, I'm glad you said earlier, you said, you tackle certain themes. I feel like in some ways that's almost like a no-no. Like I remember, like, Stephen King's On Writing, he says, like, don't ever try to write to a theme. If it happens, it happens. I don't
Oh
do
yeah,
that.
I don't.
I
No,
know
I don't
my
do that either.
themes.
That's
Yeah.
I. That's. I love. I was literally talking about on writing. I think Tuesday with my at my writing group. I love it, but there's a lot of things I don't agree with, including the
Yeah.
theme. I
Yeah.
write. I typically know the theme right when I start. I know exactly what this book is about and what it's about and what it's
Yeah.
about. Right.
Yep.
And sometimes you pull things and more threads come out, but I know I am writing towards that as much as I'm writing about. I don't know. I feel like there's some. I don't know. I've never seen any like books about writing, but about craft that are like, oh yeah, I write towards theme as much as I write towards character,
Yeah.
and I feel like I'm one of those weirdos. I write just as much as I'm writing towards the character goal. I'm also writing towards, like, hit a theme, hit this hard with using character as a tool and vice versa. I don't know.
I was gonna ask
Go
you
ahead.
on that, because I wonder. So, like, and I wonder if the reason why that works for us is because we're not. It's not like in high school where they're like, pick a theme and write it, and you don't feel anything for that theme. I know
Yeah.
for me, the reason that it works so well to write thematically is because I am going to be most successful and happiest writing something that I am really feeling. So I'm not going to write a theme that's of no interest to me, but I already know that what I want my characters dealing with is this idea, this theme that's in my head, be it anger, be it, motherhood, be it loss, whatever. I think it works as I'm not trying to shoehorn in a theme that's not applicable to story. It's that the story is culminating from that theme. I don't know if that's your thought on it
I mean,
too.
I think largely it's. I mean, yes, I absolutely like it's. I'm picking things I want to write about. So that includes the theme. I'm like, this is a really heavy, cool thing. I want to write about this and use. But I'm also like, I am. To me, theme is character. I guess it
Yeah.
ultimately, like, I am thinking of along those lines, and also, like, I was a lit major in college. I've
Ah,
been reading towards, like, I read towards analysis anyway. Like, I'm immediately picking out themes. Like, I'm not picking that stuff out like after I've read a book 3 times. I pick it out as I read it. I see the DNA right there, and it's just another thing I love. That's not a negative at all for me. I love it, and I'm ultimately I'm writing for me first.
yeah. Yeah.
So therefore, that's what. And I think it's you mentioned being a plotter. I'm also mostly a plotter. I think I also like moving towards plantsing as I go,
Yeah.
but it is still like I'm working on. I see story. I have story beats. I know what the characters mostly are. I'll discover things about them sometimes and slide those stuff in. But because I'm already plotting that stuff out, I'm like, well, if I know the theme, I can see it. I can see the
Yeah.
theme. I already like I know the characters and what they're doing and why are they doing these things. Well, that's why. The theme is why. Like, ultimately, I think it's also like a matter of I am always a person who is going to be writing theme in both macro and micro.
Yeah.
Like, the theme is certainly there under the surface, and there's more if you go dig. But also, mostly my characters are dealing with it like on a textual level.
Mhm.
Like the theme, if the theme is toxic masculinity,
Right.
then the themes underneath everything, there'll be metaphors and symbols and all that stuff. But the characters probably are also going to be dealing with like issues that relate to it in textually in the story.
Yeah, which
because
is
I
which is how
wanted,
you want your readers to
yeah,
relate to it.
exactly. I don't know. I don't think you got me off. You got me all ranting and raving at 8:30 at night. I was gonna say that we're out of time for a segment, but it's fine.
Okay.
We're not. There's no podcast police. I've talked about them on the podcast before. There's no podcast police. They won't come and get us. But Crossroads is out, y'all, and you should go read it. If you haven't experienced Crossroads, or if you have before, go read it again. Go get hurt again. Go suffer.
Look at the new cover. It's so beautiful.
It is real. It is a great cover. I would
Yeah.
say the cover
Alan
is
did a
great.
beautiful job with that. He
It's
really
so
did.
great. Like I would even like. I don't know. I'm the type of person like I zoom in on it and I look at the paper texture that they have that is laid in on. I'm like, oh, that's the good stuff. I
That's
love
all
the.
Alan. Yeah.
It's beautiful, great work. I want that's like I mean that's what and when people like I don't know what a cover should be. I'm like, go look at covers like this and like
Yeah.
study them. Understand like look at like interest look at the layout. You have this really like intricate, artistic but important, meaningful art in the middle that's eye-catching. You have the title, framing. Okay, I'm just complaining about cover design. We can move on to the second segment, which is the second act, which is
Great.
the broader bookish questions. And your first question is from our last guest,
Okay.
and I will ask you for a question for our next guest at the end of the segment.
Okay.
And your question is from Grace Reynolds,
Okay.
and her question for you is, what cursed object is in your writing space is necessary for you to get things done?
Oh man. I think Grace leads a much more interesting life than I do.
I would append that to mean like any meaningful object in your writing space, not just cursed.
Curse is so much more fun.
Fine, it is more fun, I agree, but sometimes I don't know. Some people like have pleasant writing spaces where there's no cursed objects. But if you have a cursed object, that'd be great.
Not that I let out very often, but so this might be cheating. I want to say that I feel like because we were for Women in Horror Month, everyone was posting their workspaces and their writing spaces, and I'm like I'm a chaos goblin who crouches on the couch with my laptop because I mean that's what I do. It's what I've always done. I am gonna like I said I'm gonna cheat and say that my sacred object or my curse object, whatever that is necessary to me, is my home. This is the first house that I bought. When I met my husband, my ex-husband, he had already purchased his house, the house that I lived in for 20 years. And so it was not mine, it was not something that I selected. And when we were getting a divorce and I was looking for places, it was just such a cool experience to be able to be like, no, this is what I want. And this was the place. This was the place that I walked in and I was like, this is the one, this is home. And there's just something about this space that is so peaceful to me and so conducive to creativity and just like joy. It's got this great open concept floor plan, where I can be doing dishes and my son can be like right near me. So it's the house itself. It's the heart of the house itself and the tone that it sets.
I don't think that's not cheating. That's a great answer. It's also like it reminds me of Virginia Woolf, A Room of One's Own.
Yes, yeah.
It's not to say that it is the room itself or the home itself is also the sense of it is mine and
Yes.
I control it.
Yeah.
And leading out like further out of like I have agency.
Yes.
And I am able to exercise that agency and use it to create art.
Yeah.
Which
I like that.
I mentioned, I mentioned being a lit major. So
Yeah.
all the modernists, poor Virginia Woolf. Just don't pay attention to the rest of her very sad life. Great writer, though. A question I ask everybody: who is a writer more people should be reading? And you can give me more of a name than one if you'd like.
I feel like there are a lot of names that I could give. One that I always say is S.H. Cooper, who she is a friend of mine, but I fell in love with her work before I met her. She is a very talented horror author. She writes what she calls wholesome horror, I think. She can scare you like nobody's damn business, but there's a kind feeling to her work, which I think is such an amazing relief to go back to. And she's also just unerringly brilliant. Everything she's written is fantastic. My favorite is Inheriting Her Ghosts, with its follow-up, Bottling His Ghosts, which were just absolutely wonderful. And also, I think that everybody should be reading R.J. Joseph. She is incredibly talented. Her short stories are just magnificent. I love, when she has longer form stuff. I know she has a new collection coming out, and I just not only should you buy her work and read it, but if you have the opportunity to see her read, you should absolutely take it. She's wonderful. She's got the voice for it. She does all the voices. She's very animated, and she just has that persona. So yeah, she's wonderful.
She'll be on the podcast in a month or two for
Fantastic.
the new collection. So.
Oh, good. I cannot wait to get my hands on that.
Same. Anybody else? Any other names?
I think there's tons of them, but I'll leave it. I'll leave it.
Too. That's good enough. I mean, it's also I love the symmetry of S.H. Cooper, R.J. Joseph.
True. Yeah. I'll pretend I did that on purpose.
Yeah. Okay. We'll do this one. When do you know a project is done?
I am not sure that any of them are done. I still wonder about Whispers in the Dark. I still occasionally have thoughts on edits I need to make it. I'm like, yeah, let it go, girl. So I guess it's not very poetic, but I guess the project is done when the deadline hits.
You have to turn it in.
And somebody pries it out of my hands and says, stop nitpicking it.
Is that really it? Is there would you just endlessly revise something if you didn't have to get it out in time?
Probably, especially with the longer works. Although I will say, Below was not that way. Below took me 3.5 weeks to write. That is not a thing for me. But it just flew out of me. And when my publisher Max read it, she was like, "Don't take this the wrong way, but were you on cocaine when you did this?" And I'm like, "No," but I'm not offended by that question. That one was just it started and it was high octane and then it was over. But for the most part, yeah, I don't know. It never feels done to me. Yeah.
Endlessly tinker.
Yeah.
I wrote a book in a week before.
Dang. Well done.
No, I know it's bad. That was a bad idea. I should have done that. I tell people that I'm like, well, people ask me all the time, I'm tabling. People are like, how long does it take you to write a book? I'm like, well, it varies. Some books are months, and this book was a week. Yeah. Don't do that. That's a bad idea. It's very bad for my health. Let's see. What's a practice that helps keep your writing momentum going?
Making sure that I'm still interested in it. I think the best thing for me, and this, everybody's mileage may vary on it, but for me, the momentum involves me staying in touch with the piece. So my schedule can be very erratic and can be very hard for me to find time to write. But I found that the best thing for me is to, even if I only have 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, open the document, reread the last section I wrote, tinker with it a little bit, try to get some new words down. And even if maybe I only get 100, 150 words or something, I'm still within the story. The momentum is still going. It's in my head and the wheels are turning, because that also means the story stays foremost in my head. And that means my subconscious is solving problems or noticing things that I can use or saying, oh, that's why they did that. So yeah, momentum has a lot to do with just staying involved.
I think, who was it? I want to say, it might have been Amanda Casil, but she said, no 0 days.
Oh, I have a lot of 0 days, but
we'll say that. I mean, but it's like one word counts. So if you write a single word, that still counts. But I mean, it's I took it as even days where you're not actively putting new words down. Yeah, it is still you're thinking about it. You're working on it, in the background. It's on the back burner, still cooking. What's the best piece of advice you followed?
I am going to refer back to something that John Langan told me. He said that, and he's such an incredible short story writer, and his ideas are you're like, I'm sorry, what? Ghost dinosaurs? What? Why is it so terrifying? What the hell? And he said that he pictures his brain like the penthouse suite, and that, ideas will, he pictures ideas as like something comes up to the penthouse suite, right? And he said, that your brain is kind of like playing with a dog. Like if a dog constantly is bringing you a ball and you ignore the dog and you don't throw the ball and you look at the ball and you say, that's a silly ball, I'm not going to throw it. The dog stops bringing it to you. The ideas stop coming up to the penthouse. And he said, it's important to, no matter how ridiculous the idea seems, to grab the ball, look at it, squeak it, kind of see what it's doing and engage with it, and not dismiss anything out of hand simply because it seems ludicrous on its face. I can't tell you how eye-opening that was for me, and how, I don't care how silly this sounds. Like, I think a lot of us can probably identify with the idea of living sort of this internal fantasy life from a very early age, right? Like there's no like overlap or me thinking, oh, and I don't do it as much anymore, but like it's also just this constant daydreaming, and these alternate, characters in your head and personalities or whatever, silly scenes, silly concepts. There have been things that I came up with like that, like at a super young age, that I have since getting that advice looked back on and be like, oh, I can write that shit, and because there's a story behind it. Like, instead of feeling silly that my silly brain came up with that, I'm like, hey, what did you mean by that? Where can we go with that? And that's been so much fun. Like, it's been so freeing, and I feel like it's what keeps that, it keeps everything lubricated, is to never turn something down as being too silly, to just be like, hey, maybe I don't write this, but I want to know what you were thinking when you brought it to me. I want to know what's going on with this. And that's been such a cool thing, and also explains so much about John's writing, honestly.
He's a smart guy. I
Oh,
don't know if anyone
yes.
knows. I mean, he's been on the show, and it's probably still my favorite episode. He's
Oh,
a
yeah.
he's a very smart man.
Yep.
I was gonna say, just in be inquisitive, it be
Yes.
curious about your own
Yes.
ideas, because sometimes it might that particular idea might not become a story, but there's a piece of it that you might
Yes.
find that does become a story, and it might become the most important thing in the story, and you won't even know it until 6 months later, when you have a little kernel of something, and you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't work by itself, but
This other
if I
thing.
throw these things together, suddenly I'm cooking.
Yeah.
Um, mm, 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 what was your gateway horror media?
Books. I'm trying to think if there's a specific, because what I used to just do was like, I would just go to the library and pull off any book that had a little ghost, on its
Yeah,
spine.
of course.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think the thing that sticks out of my mind, that I can pinpoint, are the, scary stories to tell in the dark. I mentioned this on a podcast yesterday, actually, because like it's just one of those things where, I was always very, very literal minded, but I also never asked any questions. So like somebody would say something and I would process it and be like, well, that seems horrible. Oh well, this is my new truth. This is life. This sucks. I can't believe I exist in a universe where this thing's happen. And I never like asked for reassurance from my parents, like, hey, what was meant by this? No, honey, it's not that. So I'm just like, I guess we're all gonna die. Okay. Those kinds of things. And those books really, really tapped into that. You're just, because you have like parents abandoning their children, and you have people eating toes out of graveyards. You have, you know, worms and just all kinds of pure insanity.
Yeah. Harold.
Oh God, yeah.
I love I love Harold.
Harold is so terrifying. That scene where he, the one guy who's remaining and waiting for his friend, he looks out and it's like Harold stretched a skin out on there, and you're like, fuck.
That's for kids.
It's,
This is a story for
I
children, by the
know.
way.
And all those damn pictures, they're
Yeah.
so disturbing.
Illustrations are so good. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. So I would say those, yeah.
I mean, that's I think everyone. There's so many people I've interviewed. They're like scary stories to tell. In
Yeah,
the dark.
yeah.
I mean, I still look at I have the collection. I still
The
look at it
same.
occasionally.
Yep.
It's still really good.
Yeah.
It's
It's
all bangers.
motivating. It's yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. We've already kind of touched on it. I'll ask, how has your writing changed since you started writing, and how has it changed since you started publishing?
Um, since I started writing, I'd say it's I just kind of gotten to know myself better in my process. You know, I've seen a little bit better what works and what doesn't. Plotting, for example, and you know, tackling certain subject matter and things like that. And then since I started publishing, I guess, you know, I'm actually going to say that the biggest change has been because me entering the publishing world coincided with me entering the indie horror world. I was unaware of it, you know. I did not know all these things. And so when I got published and I started, you know, kind of peeking around the corner of what was going on, I was like, holy shit, look at all this. This is amazing, you know. So I start reading all these things. And to me, I think the biggest thing was a very just this eye opening world of what horror can do, you know, where you're not constrained, where it does not adhere to definition of any kind. Like even I'm not even somebody who believes that horror has to be scary, you know. It just depends on what you're reading and writing. So I feel like again, the biggest part for me has been that just like eyes wide open. Oh man, these are all the things that can do this, is what can explore. So I think it's more just been a willingness to take more chances and also just to listen to myself more about what I need to say, which ends up being the most authentic things I can write, is if that's what I'm feeling.
Yeah, it's the 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 truth
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
is ultimately going to be the most powerful thing you could say, regardless of genre.
Yeah.
And if you tap into that, that's what you should. And it's also tying back into like, it'll make you the most excited, the most
Yes,
interested to
exactly.
keep writing a thing, working on a project, which I think sometimes is a lot of people's problem when they flounder a lot. It's like, well, you're writing something that you actually don't care about that much.
Yeah.
You got to find that, dig deeper until you find the thing that you're actually writing towards. Which I don't know. That's not very helpful advice sometimes to people. They're like, I don't know what that means, Robbie. I'm like, write a couple 100,000 words, and eventually you'll start. And they're like, I don't want to do that. I'm like, oh, sorry.
You got to give them smaller
man.
steps first.
Yeah. Hey, finish a short story.
Yeah.
That's actually a very good. That's the advice I try. I actually just kind of go, just write a short story.
Yeah.
There you go. And it's
see what it does.
It's 3,000 words. You're done.
Yeah.
That's all you gotta do. We'll do one more question.
Okay.
That question is, well, we'll see. What's the hardest scene or character you've had to write, and what made it so difficult?
Hardest character I've had to write. That's a little bit hard because I'm kind of thinking in terms of, well, okay, I will say that
It can be nuts and bolts mechanical difficulty as well as like emotional difficulty. It could be any way you'd like to weigh it.
yeah, because I'm thinking, I'm like, you know, I think that people who are very familiar with my work might think that it would be Stella, the mom, and the Day of the Door, because she's so just god fucking awful. But that flowed like that was just, I was like, yeah, that bitch would say this, you know, like that was actually like, that wasn't a hard thing to do. For some reason, my novella that's it's called Spirit Coven. It's about bourbon witches, and it's in a 3 author novella collection that I have with Red Legault, and it's that story was somehow like pulling teeth. I loved the concept. I really was digging like these Appalachian witches, you know, whose purpose is basically to make like healing bourbon. You know, that should have been so easy, but for some reason, I had the hardest time getting in their heads and moving the story forward. I really don't know why. I don't know whether it's I might have put too many weird time constraints on myself. I don't know, but that was definitely the hardest one to get out. I was I was so behind on deadlines on that. I kept being like, I'm so sorry. I'm very type A normally.
I mean, sometimes that's the not knowing why can be part of the struggle. Of
Yes,
where you're
yeah.
like, why isn't this just happening?
Yeah, and
I
I
can do this.
I couldn't even answer how I solved it other than I just gritted my teeth and kept going. I was worried that the fact that it was so hard would mean that it was not going to be good, you know, but when I got to the end of it and I circled back around, I was like, no, I do feel good about these characters. I do feel good about, you know, what I've had, what I've I don't, I feel like they're, you know, come to me, they come across authentic. Like I'm sad. It's so hard. It's really, and it's this brilliant masterpiece. No, I'm, you know, in the writer's way of like, I am satisfied with this work that I did.
Right. I mean, it's the and you've already said that you would just endlessly tinker with something
Yeah,
anyway if you
yeah, no,
could. So
definitely, definitely would.
yeah, I'm not. I don't. I don't go that hard where I would go forever, but there is like a part of me that's like, I mean, I was just looking at an old work today so I could advertise for it. And I'm like immediately going, Ravi, that sentence, you
Yeah.
could take 2 words out of there. It still works great. Why didn't you do that the first time? I'm like, you wrote it 7 years ago. That's why I wrote
Yeah.
it. That's it for the second act. However, I need a question for for our next guest.
Okay. Do I need to know who the next guest is,
You can
or
know if you'd like to. I can tell you who it is.
okay?
Nat Cassidy.
Nah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It can be anything. It does not have to be some grand question of some evoking grand wisdom or anything like that.
I feel like he tackles, and maybe it's just what seems predominant to me. Um, I want to know the most unhinged evil mother persona he's come across.
Okay.
So I
All
feel like
right.
that's, a little bit of a connection we have in our writing there. I would be
That's
interested to know what he says.
I was gonna say it's appropriate.
Yeah.
I will ask Nat that next week, and now we can move on to our final segment. It's time for blood. It's the third segment. It's time for struggle.
Okay. Excellent.
Anything?
No, don't explain it. Just be like, we're out for blood now. Just,
We're out. It's never. People have gotten some wide eyes when I say
yeah.
So it's could be trouble with anything. Could be business or marketing or a work in progress, whatever it may be. So what do you got? What's on top of mind?
Oh, as far as like a struggle, something.
Yeah, something you've had, something you've struggled with either currently or have previously in the past, something notable, something that maybe people don't talk about that could help our dear listeners through something similar.
Okay. Well, I feel like, yeah, and I was, because you kindly kind of give me, the nudge that would be a thing. So I was thinking about it, but that the thing that comes to mind most clearly is the idea of marketing ourselves, and even that term marketing, it calls to mind like buzzwords and meetings in rooms with people who act excited about things they don't understand because that's their job, is to sell it. And with writing, one of the things I think we all probably had that moment, because writing is this very solitary activity initially, and you're protective of it, you're whatever, and then so you finally got to this point where you shared it with people and got to the point where you got published, and holy hell, this is amazing, and then you find out now you get to do the hard part, which is getting the word out about your books. And so initially I was working at it from a sort of very marketing type minded, I got some assistance with my website and just a wonderful friend who had a marketing degree who was helping me, be like, okay, this is where you need to be. This is where you need to have a presence and everything. And so then I tried to figure it out from there. Well, I am unbearably socially awkward. And like, it took me a long time to learn how to human. And I learned by watching humans, because I don't think I'm actually one. I think I beamed down or something. So I'm, kind of like watching people. And so I think when I first set up like a Twitter profile, I think in the bio, it said like Whispers in the Dark out now. And every time I looked at that, I hated myself more. I was like, what the fuck? Kind of a thing is sad to say, but I'm also like, but I'm here. I am on these websites because I want people to see my work. But I pretty quickly pivoted from that, because I started just, again, watching humans, which is what I do when I don't understand what's going on. And I saw folks like Jonathan Jans, who, I just was kind of watching. I was like, because I picked up his books and I read them and I loved them. And then I watched him and I was like, you know what he does? He's just kind. He takes a genuine interest in people, whether it's online or in person, and he's kind and supportive. And I'm like, and I don't get the feeling that this is a persona. And I've met him since, and it's absolutely not. He is that guy. He is that kind. And I was like, okay, well, that doesn't mean I have to be Jonathan Jans 2.0. It to me, it more said, what's more effective is if I just interact with people and not have it anything to do with my book. Now, I certainly behind the scenes was seeking out reviewers and very actively, painstakingly requesting reviews and trying to learn the decorum there, right? The etiquette that's so new, like about like, how do you send those requests? How do you phrase it? How do you respectfully interact with people? What are appropriate expectations of those interactions? So again, it was this grand like relearning of humanity in this whole new frame. But when that became habit for me, when that became how I approached my online presence, it was a lot more fun, because I was just interacting with people and having fun and getting to know about their books, but more about them. And then it also just means like now, even when, social media it used to be much more effective, obviously. Um, yeah, I know, but it's still, I find a tool that can be very helpful. But I also know, and I've seen this with my friends who I adore, who I've met, as writers, and like when they have a release, I am psyched for them as a writer, and I'm psyched for them as a person. And so it's not about like making yourself so likable that everyone wants to buy your book from you. It really is about, and I'm saying this in a very pedantic way, and I apologize. I don't mean it to be talking down, but when you talked about something that newer writers maybe could learn from, that's it. It really, really, really is take a breath, take a step back, and recognize, yes, your work is very important. What a huge achievement. You should be proud, and we're proud of you. Now, take a step back from being the person who's trying to sell that book and just be the person who wrote it. You know,
Right.
those, and I feel like those are the things, you look at like Clay McLeod Chapman, and what he does. And again, it's not persona. It's who he is. He shows up and he's running around and he's excited as hell, not just for him, but for you, damn it. And these things are so authentic, and they're so the way that we make these connections, right? And that is what I feel like is successful, because at the end of the day, like, God, I love money. Money's amazing. Money allows all of us to do things like take care of ourselves and our families, take care of each other. It puts us in a position where when there's mutual aid requests, we can say, fuck yeah, I got your back. I think a lot of us fantasize about having enough money to help our friends too, these sorts
Yeah.
of things. So money is delightful. But at the end of the day, I want to be the person who wrote this book, not the person who sold it to you. So I don't know. That's the best advice that I can give. That was, and
I
it
mean,
was a genuine, like, long way for me to get there kind of struggle.
I mean, that is a thing that every time marketing and social media comes
Yeah.
up on this podcast, it's always like the thing that's going to help ultimately in the long term help you sell books is meaningful connections to both readers and other authors, and not making it transactional.
Exactly.
Being
Yeah.
like being genuinely interested in other people's work, and then therefore, and most of the time they'll when you do that for them, when you show genuine interest, they will then therefore do it to you
Yeah.
in
And
some way,
just,
shape, or form. And
and
it's
for
just it's
real.
nice. It's just a
Yeah.
nice thing.
And it's a wholesome and it's an organic relationship,
Right.
And I don't know, it's with readers too. Like I had to learn, like, again, I really didn't human well for a really long time. And I had to observe and be like, because my first, like, if someone pays me a compliment, I love that meme that's like someone trying to put the crumpled dollar, into the vending machine, and I just keep
Yeah.
rejecting it, and it's uncomfortable for everyone. I had to learn just to succinctly, when a reader would comment on something and say, I love your work, or I love this book, just to say, and I mean it every time, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And those interactions and you meaning it are, again, like, you have these wonderful interactions with readers, and maybe they didn't even buy your book. Maybe they got it from a library or borrowed it from a friend, and maybe they never buy anything from you. Doesn't matter. They spent their time with you. And then they took their time out of their schedule to tell you what your work meant to them. So all of these, I almost hate grouping it in the category of marketing. I guess what I want to say is do this instead.
Right.
Do this
It's
instead.
it's not to think about it. Think about it in a different way. Reframe it
Exactly.
in your
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
It makes your own mental health a lot better.
So much better. Yeah.
That's I think ultimately like that's more like obviously it's great to be a good person and to engage with others and to be thankful, but it also genuinely does make your own mental
It really
health
does.
a lot better.
Because you are someone that you can live with.
Right. I could talk about it for hours, but we're not going to do that. Before we go, Laurel, it's a thing I've been trying to do. I'm going to give you an opportunity to manifest something for
Mm,
your, let's say, intermediate career,
okay.
near to intermediate future, what would you like? What's a big thing that you would like in the near to intermediate future for your career? Obviously, there's lots of things you would like in the world, but we'll try and keep it focused on your career.
Well, and I'll keep it even closer to home. Crossroads just came back out. I would like to manifest, you know, shortwave. Alan worked out a distribution deal with Simon and Schuster, so Crossroads is under that umbrella. I would love it if this re-release and the new cover and everything just got more eyes on Crossroads. And again, money's great, but those connections that I've had with readers, it really, it's the imposter syndrome is always so heavy. But there have been enough people who've told me that it helped them process their own grief. That's so important to me. And so if that's a tool that can help someone, if it's an experience that can be a good one in their life, then I would love it for more people to have access to it. And be great for me too. But anyway,
It's going to happen.
it would be awesome. I would love that.
I've already willed something that someone has spoken about on this podcast into existence.
Oh,
We've done it collectively with our power.
excellent. I like that.
This is also going to happen. I guarantee it. Before we go, where should people buy the book, and where can they follow you on the internet?
I am primarily on Instagram. And so yeah, and Blue Sky, although I'm less active there. It's if you just search Laurel Hightower, it's always some minor variation of that. And then where they can purchase the book, the best place to buy it is directly from the publisher if you can. But if you go to my website, which shout out to my dear friend Sonora Taylor, who does website work. I hired her after many years that I should have already done it and had her revamp my website, and I'm so happy with it. And there's a link now to where you can click it and it takes you to all the places you can buy it. So that's the easiest thing to do is laurelhightower.com and just go on there.
All right, there you go. You heard her, folks. Go there, buy all the books. Right, right. Go buy Make Crossroads a multi-million-dollar smash success.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, and then we can help everybody.
Yeah, and save more pit bulls,
I 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. All the doggos, very important.
All of the doggos, yes.
All the doggos. Laurel, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This was fun.